Wembley. It's been a strange year.
We have had to do things a bit differently, but we have still packed a lot in.
We'd like to tell you all about it. In the autumn term, we learnt about the geography of London and compared it to Ham.
We were not able to go on a school trip to central London, but we walked around our local area.
We drew pictures of the famous London landmarks, and like the Big Ben and the Tower Bridge.
Did you know that Big Ben is not the name of the tower? It is the name of the big bell inside. We also learned about the Great Fire of London in 1666. We compared London now to what it was like back then. The fire started in Thomas Farriner's bakery in Pudding Lane.
People think that the oven wasn't properly put out before they went to bed, and wind blew under the door and regained the ashes.
We baked our own bread, but thankfully we didn't burn down half of London. The family escaped by climbing to the next roof, apart from Mary the maid, who was too scared to jump. She became the first person to die.
The fire spread very quickly because the houses were made of wood and built very close together, so the fire could jump to the next house very easily.
Everything was very dry after a hot summer. Strong winds made things even worse.
We know lots about the fire because of Samuel Pepys and the diary he wrote. We wrote our own diary entries in character. Did you know Samuel Pepys buried his cheese to keep it safe from the fire. We built our own Tudor Jude house and then burned a street of them.
Mr. Mill made it sure that we do it safely.
We learned about the fire triangle. All fires need fuel, oxygen, and heat. If you take away any of one of those three, a fire can't burn. The people of London worked together to bring water from the river and deliberately blew up buildings to create gaps that the fire couldn't jump across. After 4 days, the wind dropped and the fire died away. Incredibly, only 6 people died. Phew. Afterwards, London was rebuilt with wider streets and stone and brick buildings.
Our next history topic, was Florence Nightingale. In the 19th century, being a nurse was not seen as a suitable job for a woman, but Florence not only trained to become a nurse, she went to in a hospital at the other end of Europe in war zone.
Conditions at the hospital were awful. Poor hygiene, unhealthy food, not enough beds, medicine or bandages. More soldiers died of diseases they caught in a hospital than died in the battles.
Florence managed to convince the government that all these things needed to be changed. She invented the pie chart to prove that her method worked. Florence checked on the soldiers through the night and became famous as the Lady with the Lamb.
We couldn't visit the Florence Nightingale Museum in London this year, but we had a Zoom call with Florence. We also had a Zoom meeting with the real-life army doctor who confirmed that lots of Florence's ideas are still used today. We also learned about Mary Seacole, a Jamaican woman who also travelled to the Crimean War to work as a nurse. She had an even tougher time than Florence as she had to pay her own way and encountered racism as well as sexism.
In November, we learned about Saint Andrew, one of Jesus' disciples and the patron saint of Scotland.
We wove our own tartan and made Scotch pancakes. Yum yum.
In December, we finally did the National Phonics Dream Check that was postponed from year one, and St. Richard's got some of the best results in whole of Richmond and Kingston.
After Christmas, we were back in lockdown, so some children had to work from home. Google Classroom was a challenge, but we adapted and still kept up with the work the children in school were doing.
The daily live Google Meet sessions really helped us to feel connected as a group.
We didn't let the lockdown stop us learning about the North and South Poles.
Did you know Antarctica is a continent because there's rock beneath the ice and snow, but the Arctic is just a huge layer of ice floating on the sea.
We learned the sad story of Captain Scott's doomed attempt to reach the South Pole in 1912.
We copied the style of artist Nerys Levy, who created pictures of the Arctic. She had to work very fast as she could only take her gloves off for a minute at a time because of the cold.
We learned about the difficulties at the North Pole from the Inuits and Eskimo peoples. We learned about the life cycle of penguins and about the adaptations animals may make to survive in the extreme cold.
We investigate ways to categorize animals and use computers to follow charts for investigate creatures according to the attributes.
We also found out about the 7 things needed to identify life: movement, respiration, senses, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition.
We used those signs to classify things as alive, like dogs and trees, no longer alive, like a plank of wood or a beef burger, or never alive, like a metal spoon or a plastic chair.
We learnt about the history of music, including composers like Mozart and Beethoven. When we worked through the different genres of 20th century music, from blues to hip hop, we listened to dozens of key
figures including Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and James Brown. We learned how changes in technology help to change music. We looked at the abstract art of Paul Klee and created our own picture inspired by his Blue Night using random numbers, letters and symbols to get started.
This one is Jaden's.
When everyone came back in school after lockdown, we looked at dragons and created our own fictional, non-fictional books describing different types of dragons and how to spot them. We made dragon eyes out of clay and they're super cool.
In science, we learn about creating a fair test where you can only change one element at a time.
We use this to investigate what plants need to grow by planting beans and placing them on the windowsill, in the cupboard and some outside.
When we analysed the results, we found that the beans on the windowsill grew really quickly, but the ones outside got too much water, and the ones in the cupboard did not get enough light.
We used the instructions we wrote for planting seeds to start learning about algorithms.
From there, we learnt about programming bee-bots and debugging an algorithm. That means finding a mistake in the instructions and fixing it.
That in turn led us to using code to program sprites on the computers.
This has been a strange year for everybody, but we stuck together as a team and we are looking forward to year 3.
It's Mr. Neil again! Yippee! Yay!
Thank you for